Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Welcome to Wednesday Wham. And tonight we have Martin, one of our regulars. Martin, say hi.
Hello.
Is he frozen?
Did I freeze? Hello. Can you hear me? Check. Uh-oh.
We can hear you, but you look like you're asleep at the board there.
Oh dear.
He's very upset with us.
And let's say hi to, nope, still frozen. Let's say hi to David. Color me what?
What?
Thank you for being with us tonight, David, because we have a fascinating topic to talk about tonight.
Oh, I saw that.
Still frozen. Yes. We are going to talk about what makes post-apocalyptic apocalyptic fiction so popular with people. And I'm going to open this up. He's trying to come back on. There he is.
There he is. He's moving.
Hey, sorry about that.
Okay.
So we're talking about fluffy unicorns and pink puppy tails.
Exactly.
That's right.
Oh, well, good.
We're talking about the end of the world as we know it.
Ah, yes. Right.
And the thing is, that's been a very popular topic for like the last decade or so, but it's certainly not been a new topic. And I'm quoting from the internet here, so I didn't come up with this. It says, end times have been a fixture of fiction for centuries, from before the Book of Revelations, which is pretty much the original heavy-duty apocalyptic book, to War of the Worlds. It begs the question, why do we love stories about the end of the world? I mean, some of our earliest civilizations, like the Maya, were obsessed with apocalyptic ideas. Hi, Pops. Hey, you can get on, anytime you want to. Come on, we need you.
This is actually probably a good topic that Pops would have some good comments on, interesting comments on. So definitely.
I mean, how many ways can you think of that the end of the world can happen? We have asteroids, super volcanoes, pandemics, lethal gamma ray bursts, geomagnetic storms, obviously nuclear weapons, EMPs, which is a big favorite, climate change. What else can you guys think of?
Well, you hit most of the things that fall under the natural, and then you've got the supernatural, the
Zombies.
biblical, alien. You've got a whole bunch of different range there. So some definite different views and a lot of like comics and things from those. So yeah, let's kind of start there. Just let's go with some of your examples with some of the natural occurring things like EMPs or the
Super volcano
nuclear
underneath Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So yeah. So it's kind of.
Why do you think it's so popular? Why do you think people are so fascinated with it, Martin?
Did I freeze again?
Yeah, just talk. That's okay.
Okay, so I think the popularity stems from the fact that it always boils down to a scenario where you got to survive, and people like survival tales. So the people have to scrap and fight and figure out how are they going to get from point A to point B, and they're in such a dire situation. Like how do they get there? So
so
can they get there?
You think people like people becoming ordinary heroes in their own survival?
Perhaps.
They're solving their own problems. They're rising above and going beyond and becoming survivors, coming out stronger than what they went in. Is that the appeal? Is what you're saying?
Maybe, yeah. I think that'll be part of it, and then the other part of it might be that maybe if the characters are written right, then they really reveal what's inside of us as humans. So and I think people like to see that reflection in them of themselves being put onto the piece of paper. So yeah, I don't know.
How about you, David?
See, I think a completely different direction.
Okay,
I think that a lot of the draw for people is the upset of the norm. It's not for like a superhero. Oh, hey, this is going to be great. I think it's about the change. It's about some of the hard, maybe some of the hardships, where you're kind of looking at stuff like the things that we face every day. It's getting out of the things we face every day. The ideas of a lot of overpopulation. So a lot of the things with areas with a lot less people, going back, kind of resetting the time and going back in history. If you look at things, some of the shows like The Walking Dead and stuff like that, some things that I pick up is you're now going back in those days where you're not where you're dealing with small groups of people, and the people are kind of a little more devolving into more the basic instincts, and some of the more kind of raw personalities and stuff like that. That's kind of for the apocalyptic stuff I see more of than like, oh well, here's the challenge. But Martin does bring a good point where you see the things like the Dawn of the Dead and everything at the end, or those type where you see the people narrowly escaping the challenges and all that. So it is kind of a mix of the two, but also there's also that adrenaline threat level rush that they're going through along the journey as well. So
I saw a quote on the internet that said these type of scenarios can be frightening and cathartic, but also represent a simple, meaningful, unambiguous life, which can be very appealing. So it goes back to a simpler time when we're boiled down to our basics again.
Mm-hmm. But it also kind of draws back to why do we have things like a lot of popularity going into medieval times. There's a lot of the basics in there. There's a lot of the fantasy dragons and all this stuff where the big adrenaline threats and all that stuff. So it just kind of all ties together. It's kind of a new medium version of our old school medieval times and stuff. So
I think there's one.
Oh, go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that one other aspect that might also add to the popularity is the environment. The environment changes so dramatically from what you're used to that it gives you something interesting to look at or to think about, right? So it's not your normal everyday. So now you're seeing something that's kind of moved you from your normal everyday scenario into something else, and that can be painted 1,000 different ways. So that might also be the appeal.
I am older than you two. So I was raised in the duck and cover age, where any day, anytime, we expected the nukes to drop. And we had drills at school where we would duck under our desks and cover our heads and kiss our asses goodbye. But that was the time of the Cold War, and we were always expecting to hear those bombs all the time. So we lived under that threat, and it really breeds a whole different type of outlook on life. It was before that, life wasn't. You would get the occasional doomsday scenario, but ever since the Cold War, it seems like the doomsday scenarios have picked up speed. The very first time I was ever confronted with a post-apocalyptic story was Alas, Babylon, the book Alas, Babylon, which was written in 1959. I read it in middle school. It was about a nuclear war and people surviving after the nuclear war. Now imagine that you're in 6th grade and you're reading about this. The first thing that happened is there was no electricity. So the first person who died, of course, was the neighborhood diabetic. And it just goes on from there. What about you guys? What was the first time you were exposed to that?
Well, I just have to say that's kind of interesting about the first one to die would be the diabetic. I mean, I'm still stuck on that part. Find that interesting. I never would have thought that.
Insulin has to be kept cold.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Interesting. What would be my first scenario of first apocalyptic kind of book that I read. You know, outside of reading the Book of Revelation as a child. Yeah, I think maybe the Day of the Triffids. But I don't know if that counts. I don't know if that's more like a space alien thing. But do you guys know this story?
No, go ahead.
Day of the
No, I
Triffids.
don't.
Oh, okay. Day of the Triffids. So it's basically a bunch of aliens in the shape of flowers come down. They're like walking flowers, and then they have like this giant tongue that comes out, and it stings or kills people or whatever. And so then people are just running around trying to figure out how to stay away from these creatures. So yeah, grade 7 or 8, I read that one. So that would probably be my first apocalyptic-ish. But I don't know if it really falls into the apocalypse per se. But it is an alien invasion that comes in and takes over the planet.
Right, and then people become
Rather fascinating tale.
right?
Yeah. So
well, that qualifies. Anything where the entire world is disrupted in some form, way, shape, or form, and everybody has to go in survival mode. Yeah. I think that qualifies. How about you, David?
To say at least reading it in grade 7, I mean, I was sitting on the edge of my bed. It was a pretty intense book.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I can so clearly remember reading Alas, Babylon, 5th or 6th grade, because, like I said, we lived under the threat of nuclear war all the time. So to me, this was horrifying. I used to, when I was a kid, I used to calculate, where's the nearest nuclear base? Omaha, Nebraska. Oh my God, why does it have to be there? Because that was NORAD, So, or that was one of the major bases in the world. All right, how about you, David? When's the first time?
Well, for me, it's more, more movie based than that. I'm weird. I used to read things like Animal Farm and stuff like that. I didn't read a lot of the apocalyptic stuff initially, but it was more of probably the same of alien type invasions more so than like nuclear war and stuff like that. A lot of my influence was stuff like War of the Worlds, but then some of the stuff that I've read was more the science fiction fantasy stuff, which kind of placed me in those worlds where things were different. Like the Dragon Riders and Per and stuff like that. Where the end result was, but not so much the apocalypse. More so that came from movies, and the aliens, the movie The Thing, stuff like that, where it was an outside force that was devastating. Even in small pockets or large pockets. That's more of where growing up. I saw a lot of that, or I had a lot of influence from that stuff, but it was more movies than a lot of the books and stuff. But a lot of those movies came from books. So
it's interesting that you mentioned George Orwell, because his book 1984 was considered to be an apocalyptic book.
Oh, really?
It was written in 1949. So 84 seemed like a long time away from him, but it depicts a totally gray, totalitarian world, and nobody has any privacy. Everybody's watched over by Big Brother, and they have the thought police, and the news is manufactured according to who's in charge. So
sounds an awful lot like today.
I know, doesn't it though? They were off by a few years.
Yeah.
But that's considered to be apocalyptic because it's the end of the world as we know it.
Mhm.
I mean, it becomes this we're all these little mindless drones just working in everybody, where everybody's spying on everybody else, and we're only fed what the higher ups want us to know, and nothing else. So, I mean, and now in the world of AI, where are we going to stop? I mean, how? There's another one. AI takes over the world.
All
Skynet.
right.
I
Yeah.
can't do that. I can't do that, Dave. How?
No, HAL 2000. Yeah.
So,
I just, when I see things with AI, part of me just wants to put that screen, that background of the lens and everything, the HAL lens, just kind of a reminder.
So yeah. So, but so what are the some of the things that make something apocalyptic?
I can answer that for you.
Please.
Okay.
'Cause
Well,
I
have you ever heard
wanna
of
hear.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yep.
Okay, so we are reduced to the basics, where it's water. Let's see, it's water, food, warmth, rest. And rest is part of safety. So in a post-apocalyptic world, you are boiled down to these basic needs, and then you have to build it up again from there. So you're boiled down to the very basics, and it's up to you and your little cadre of cohorts to rebuild society. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So apocalyptic is kind of like, okay, you're stripped down to the basics and you have to start again.
Right.
Okay.
Now, some people will say that apocalyptic needs to end badly, like everything dies. But a lot of people see post-apocalyptic stories as hopeful. Kind of like draining the swamp, and as the politicians like to say, and starting fresh and rebuilding society in the perfect image. What are your
The
views?
perfect image of what?
I don't know.
That's part of the big subjective part is,
Yeah.
who decides what is the perfect way to go. Kind of something that kind of reminds me on a small front is, the whole thing of the Lord of the Flies.
Oh, yeah.
Where everything gets rebuilt, but it's in the perspective of children. So what's their ideal, and even in there you get completely different views on that. So your little pocket of cohorts, as Barbara said, doesn't necessarily mean that they all share the same idea.
Right.
Mm.
One
And have
person's
some,
utopia is somebody else's dystopia.
yeah, and they can have some pretty explosive results. Some pretty big divisions going on there as well. Then it becomes, the metaphor that they used in The Dark Knight, where he snaps the pull cue and says, "All right, boys, go do it," and whoever comes out ahead basically is the one that is the winner. So, and in these situations, typically whoever gets the strongest hand will kind of determine the direction that things go.
Mm.
Any comments, Martin?
Um, I think I'll leave it for now.
Writing apocalyptic fiction is a joy for most writers, because what they're doing is that they're just blowing everything up and then they're starting from scratch. They're world building, so they can just start all over, and go in whatever direction they want to go. So it's a wild west of writing when you're writing dystopian or post-apocalyptic fiction. If you had to do that, where would you go, David? In your perfect scenario.
I would throw all the rules out the window and kind of go for shock value. I would go for how deeply can we go? Can we devolve, and then from there, how can we build back up from there? What
You're
kind
gonna hit rock bottom before we go up, huh?
Yeah, let's start over. Let's hit ground zero, and let's look at what do we define on who is your protagonist, and what rules do you have for your protagonist and your antagonist. If you devolve pretty well, that can really design a pretty serious, pretty dark antagonist that you can go into, because rules are out. You turn around and you do your more realistic thing, and you realize, okay, well, the police are here, and there's going to be some of those levels. Well, if you're removing all of those restraints, you can really go and start doing some dark things. And then looking at your protagonist, your protagonist definitely doesn't need to be your knight in shining armor. You can establish boundaries now at this point where your protagonist just needs to be on a higher level than your antagonist.
You kill everybody, but it won't result in cannibalism, sort of thing. I'll do all the bad things, but this is where I draw the line. I will not eat other people.
Yeah. In your in a story like that, you could run with that, and you could doesn't mean that this person's not going to go and take the person out next to him. But in the scenario you did, just doesn't mean that he won't be feasting on anybody or anything like that.
It's one step up.
But I'm thinking more of like that allows you to, by devolving everything down, that allows you to bring protagonists that may have a lot more flaws. What if you kind of think back of it, what made the Toxic Avenger, somebody that people kind of at the time people kind of looked up to and all that. Think about it, he's pretty seriously deformed and all this stuff, but he was the protagonist in this storyline. So a lot of those boundaries and flaws you can bring out in your protagonist, and also use that to develop commonalities and things that draws that you may have to this this particular character that can make things interesting.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And the very cool thing about starting from scratch all over again is that the survivors make the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So the writer would be able to really unleash their creativity and make up all these weird, fantastic rules, that we as a society today don't live by.
Mm-hmm.
So, Martin, What is
Mhm.
your if you were writing a post-apocalyptic
She's having a problem today with that word.
apocalyptic
If I was writing a
Post-apocalyptic.
post-apocalyptic tale,
yeah. And you can
what?
throw in zombies or anything you want. It's your tale. So if you want to be World War Z, you could be World War Z. If you want to be, super COVID, you could be super COVID. Whatever.
So what would my scenario be? Oh,
Dead air.
wow, that's
Well, here's something that might be a little interesting for you, Martin, is you can take the view of, this is the really messed up world, but I've heard you say some things where you like, on some instances, to bring in a kid-friendly thing. So
right.
what about,
Okay.
what about a
Yes.
scenario where, it's not demons and monsters and blood and guts and everything,
Right.
but you have something that's
Right.
kid
Okay. So
related.
yes. So I have a scenario that I have kind of been bandying about for some time, and
Okay.
the scenario is that something to the effect of like Los Angeles has been decimated and is now taken over by a foreign army, possibly Asian. um,
Yep.
and and but it's pretty much a wasteland, and the there's kids who have been tasked, or maybe because they have nothing better to do, and we're talking young kids like under the age of 12 and under, that would be tasked with running errands or running band product back and forth around a destroyed city, and how do they survive, and how do they keep away from whomever is chasing them and whatever is chasing them. Yeah, so
That actually sounds really good.
yeah, so that's been an idea
should
that's been
flesh
kicking
that
around,
out.
and so that would be that would be my kid friendly scenario, and then you can present, well, okay, so now kids aren't able to make it back to their home base or back to their parents, or parent or whoever is left that is kind of looking after them, or maybe they're on their own, not sure. So now you can also do stuff for, like, okay, how do you make a fire, like how do you okay, let's make a slingshot. How do you make a slingshot? Do you do a slingshot with like a rubber band, or do you do a slingshot that you do where you have to like throw it over your head? What other tools or mechanisms can they find that they could use as weapons? I don't know if you want to use the term weapons, but or things that they can use to either protect. And so you could actually do scenarios where you could actually demonstrate these different things and show, hey kids, you can do
Yeah,
these kinds of
absolutely.
things. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, that's what I don't know if any of you guys remember the whole Laura Ingalls Wilder Little House series, but all of those
Yeah.
books were geared towards kids, and all of them were instructional as well. Told how Pa built this, or Pa built this door, and all the way through she was explaining how things were done and how things were built. So
Yeah,
absolutely, that would be
I
a
know of the
cool.
stories. I never read a single one.
Oh yeah, yeah. Every single book but was very instructional. How
Interesting.
to beat the chaff out of wheat and stuff like that. Planing a door, making a smokehouse, all that stuff. But absolutely, that sounds like a really good young teen story or something like that. You should pursue that.
I just remember back to some of our conversations that we had on other streams, or as a result of other streams, that you had some desire for some kid-friendly things, and I thought this may be a great scenario
Yeah.
of that. So
And
that's
actually,
why I proposed.
thank you for bringing that up, because it now reminded me that I actually have this scenario sitting in the back of my head that's been waiting to be brought out. So yeah, so maybe it's time to dust that off again and see what we can do with it. Yeah, very cool. Now the other way I could take it is well, you've got the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and you could have a scenario where okay, the four horsemen are riding around. You can't ever really see them, but maybe there's something that allows you to see them, and then these guys, whoever is running around in the apocalypse, is trying to figure out how do we kill them or get rid of them, or so that we can move on. And
they all have names. Like diseases. His name is Ralph.
Here's something, Martin, is maybe you make it so people can't see them, but once you do see them, once you can actually see them, then now you're in trouble.
Right. Yes. Well, exactly. Yeah. So, well, now you're on the. So, in a sense, if you think about it, whatchamacallit, Lord of the Rings, the riders, those rider characters or whatever they are essentially the horsemen of the apocalypse.
The ring wraiths.
Yeah, those guys.
I mean, hi, Tommy. Is this a Flora?
Howdy do.
Tommy.
Howdy do.
He's driving.
I am driving. I was told after I was finished biking that I should jump online, so I'm going to see what you guys are even talking about tonight.
Well, are you driving through the apocalypse?
It looks like it.
I know it does. I can't. This camera. This is so bright. I don't know why it's so bright. I can't see the road. All right, there we go. Now I'm on the road. I was out of the woods now. Okay. So hi guys, what's going on?
Yeah. Well, are you driving through the apocalypse?
I was driving through the backwoods. It could be the apocalypse. It was pitch dark. It was scary. There's monsters out there, I'm sure. Maybe some bear and some deer. So no.
I gotta ask you, Tommy. Have you ever read Babylon or Alas Babylon? The book Alas Babylon.
No, is it a book?
Yeah, it was written in 1959, one of the very first apocalyptic books, and it takes place in Florida.
No. As we all know, Tommy don't read books.
It's about
you read comics.
I do read. I read the pictures.
Those pretty pictures.
Oh, yeah. So what's the story about?
It's about the nuclear war and this whole community in Florida that try to survive after the big boom, and it's one of the first few post-apocalyptic books that a lot of people have read, and it's 1959. I read it in 6th grade. So what's your favorite apocalyptic scenario?
Oh, jeez. I wish I would have known what the subject was. I'd have thought about it some more. I like the Mad Max stuff. That's always kind of fun.
It is.
Yep. Next. I gotta think about this a second. Give me a second. Look, I jumped on and I stopped y'all from talking about what y'all were talking about. Y'all can keep talking and then I'll just chime in.
Well, we were talking about the apocalypse.
Our different scenarios. These two came up with their ideas of what if they were writing a post-apocalyptic fiction, which is super popular to do, by the way, because you basically just wipe the board and start over again. So you're world building everything from the ground up, and you're doing it however you feel like it.
So it could be pretty much anything. But so do you start the story off where there is nothing and you're building it from the ground up, but the fact that we can all talk and there is some power kind of stuff and things like that, or do you really have to figure out how to make fire again, that kind of thing?
Yeah, whatever you want. I mean, some people, like, their idea is that aliens have invaded. And what was that show on TV here a while back with the aliens that were rounding everybody up and putting them in internment camps, because that was food, and it wasn't it wasn't War of the Worlds either. It was a
Was
TV
that
show, and I
V?
can't remember. No,
it-
they called them
was it-
skitters.
Dark Skies or something like that.
Yes, Dark Skies. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So that one was, would establish a base point of humanity still there. They've still got some weapons and some like shortwave radio and stuff like that. Or in the case of David, he wanted to take it down to bare bones. I mean, rock bottom. We're starting from scratch.
We're having to build shelters completely, like everything got destroyed, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And also along the lines of bare root like brutal type feelings, and brutality and stuff like that. You can go all the way down the rabbit hole and start basically a whole new playground.
But-
you can go down there. So
You can't go too. I mean, if it was to happen now, you can't really go too much, because unless you're saying that everybody forgets how to make things, and even though we can't, maybe they're all destroyed, or there's some kind of something that makes its electricity doesn't work at all, or we an EMP, yeah, or but we still have some, where it's not like our memory's wiped. We can, it's not like caveman time, right? So we would have a little bit of a step up, right?
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm going to posit a scenario, and this about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago here in Canada. We went through a power failure. The grid literally went down for three to 4 days. In my area, and in other areas, it was gone for at least a week. Now,
We do that. It's called hurricane season.
to bring that back up, though, I mean, it takes a lot of specialized people who know a lot of things, and like I have no clue about electricity at all. So, like, if
I know
you have a scenario where all the guys who know how electricity works
If they all got killed somehow.
like where
they were all at a convention when this happened, and then they all got wiped out.
yeah.
Well, here's something too to think about. A comparative. Also, what are you throwing in on your time frame? Two scenarios, two shows. We'll go with shows. Is compare the Walking Dead with Fear the Walking Dead. So you're talking about world-changing event. Are you talking about 2 days after that? Or are you talking about 2 years after that? Because obviously 2 years after that, a lot of your potential, a lot of your resources, your gasoline to run your generators and all that stuff are going
gasoline doesn't last forever. It goes bad.
No,
yeah.
Not in The Walking Dead. Apparently, it goes bad as soon as they run out. That's when it goes bad.
Exactly.
No, in the real world, gasoline goes bad.
But we really had sort of a smaller version of that 2 or 3 years ago when the plague hit all of us, and we ran out of toilet paper, couldn't go outside, and couldn't do anything, and so we had like a little mini version of an apocalypse just a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of shows us that we're not ready.
I know it doesn't. Because we did a bad job at making it through there.
Don't you guys keep a supply of stuff on hand? I've got 5 to 6 months worth of stuff. That wouldn't get me through a real apocalypse, not by any means.
Well, not
But
now because I'm coming to your house, so
yeah.
I'm going to use up all your toilet paper.
Well,
Well, actually, you remember what was it last week? Here's like a little mini apocalypse kind of thing. Last week when it was mostly AT&T, but all the phone cell service went offline from 3 o'clock to basically or 3 a.m. to what was it 4 or 5 in the p.m. Your phones didn't work. It's like I was driving around like, what am I going to do? My phone doesn't work.
I'm
It's
sure the
like,
teenagers thought it was the end of the world.
wow, I mean, you're so used to having your phone working.
Okay,
It's
so
like I can't. Should I drive? What if I break down on the side of the road? What's going to happen? It's like,
So my version of the apocalypse is more logical, and because I'm a very anal, logical person, and I'm also a military mom. And my version is that we have a grid down situation. Do you realize how much stuff that we live with today is run by electronics, electricity, microchips, all that stuff? And if we had an EMP or a grid down situation, if even 3 to 4 of our major grids were taken down, it would have a cascade failure all over the United States. And that's the kind of scenario I think of, because basically you'd be going back 100 years, not to the back to the beginning like David would, but you'd be going back 100 years.
Yep.
Or 100 and,
try to rebuild
120 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get at with what I was telling you. The scenario that we went through, it showed us how fragile our systems actually are. So
Yep.
yeah, so like getting into an apocalyptic scenario in this day and age is a very real possibility.
It's a very real possibility. I have a series of books. The first one's called 1 Second After. The next one is called 1 Year After. And then the last one is called 5 Years After. And it's all about how an EMP, a low trajectory nuke in orbit, can produce an EMP that will take out a wide section of the country. And what the consequences would be. And some of it's pretty ridiculous, but some of it's pretty true. What about you? Hello? Anybody out there?
Oh.
It's just interesting to see, the potential differences on takes that you can do with this.
Yes. Do you prefer
Definitely.
realistic takes or fantasy takes like World War Z? Zombies.
I think a lot of people prefer the zombie scenario because it's so outrageous.
I was about to say if any of these would happen, which one do you think that you might could do better at than what is portrayed right now? I would really think I could do better with the zombie stuff than what Walking Dead or World War Z, all that kind of stuff. I mean, just tie their shoelaces together. Wouldn't that be enough to stop them from coming to get you because they couldn't move? They're like, there's all kind of things that all kind of things you can do to keep the zombies from getting you. Now those fast running zombies.
Oh,
I don't know about
World War Z. In World War Z,
yeah, those fast guys. Yeah, I know.
God.
Those are crazy. Or the, I don't think anybody would survive those guys. But they didn't for the most part.
Well, throw another scenario. What about your Zombieland, your comedy related stuff too? That's a whole new perspective there as well.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah. So the popularity I think just goes into part of it is the tropes as well.
Often that's the kind of apocalypse thing. I don't know.
People like the tropes. And then people like the tropes, and then people like how does somebody play with the trope, right? So
Obviously,
like,
there's a zombie trope, and then there's the hot zone trope, where you've got the biological weapon or the biological agent that escapes, and takes over, gets into the water or whatever, and then everybody dies. Any more tropes?
Well, think about one thing I'm thinking about is for sales wise, what do you think would sell more books? The the zombie things, or the drama of the drama of living in a apocalyptic, post-apocalyptic world, your day-to-day things. I think a lot of the things that are going to sell more are that sensationalism of the scare, the
zombies.
yeah, I think that's
There's a lot of different series out there that deal with both, actually. But when you have the one where it's just society goes backwards 150 years or whatever like that, they throw in drama by people becoming bands of barbarians running around and taking your food and murdering everybody so they can have all your stuff, because there's not enough food to go around, and that's where the drama comes from them, because you got to protect yourself from all the wild bands of marauders and the cannibals.
The cannibals.
cannibals. Cannot discount the cannibals.
Cannot
Would
discount the cannibals.
would monsters could fit into any of this kind of stuff? Like all of a sudden a bunch of monsters that lived in the center of the earth, kind of like what they're and they would all of a sudden there's a volcano explodes and then it opens up something and then all of a sudden they start coming out, like kind of like that stupid TV show. What's that? San Andreas or whatever. A big sinkhole opened up and all the monsters started coming out.
Yeah, I'd like to know how they fall into that sinkhole and don't die. They just
Are you?
Yeah, I tried to watch that again the other day. It's just you gotta, if you just jumped into episode 2, you probably would be better. You could then watching the beginning out. There's a sinkhole. We all fell in. Oh, look, we're okay. Yay! But
yeah, we all landed on the soft earth.
I know, on the round inside part where there's some sort of. I didn't even get to the part where they figured out how how it was lit up down there. It's like,
that's a good question. That's a good question. Yeah, that's a take on the Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah. Yep.
Because
and then the first episode they were talking about we need to get supplies together and get get some shelters because it's going to be dark soon. It's like, well, how would you know it's going to be dark soon? You just fell into a big hole. How do you know it's going to be dark? Did y'all not watch the show? I just watched it a couple of weeks ago, the first couple of episode or two, and so that's what first thing I was thinking. That'll be dark soon. Wouldn't it be dark already? What do you mean dark soon? I don't get it.
You're in the middle of the earth. Shouldn't it already be dark?
That's what I'm saying. I didn't understand why it was lit up to start off with, so I quit watching it.
That's because Mole Man is in charge down there. So
I guess I don't know.
Did the Fantastic Four show up?
Phosphorescent algae.
Well, no. Speaking,
it was full on sun lit up. Did y'all not watch this TV show? It's on right now. I don't think it's been canceled. I think it's still on. Andreas? That's the name of it. It's Andreas. That's the name of the show. I think it's on Peacock, or is it on?
Yeah. I saw the first season in
BC.
We watched the first season.
Yeah, you made it way further than I did.
No more seasons.
I think is it it's LEDs or something? It's light bulbs up there that have to be turned off.
So then, speaking in
anyway, I'm sorry. That was a ramble.
Yeah, sorry. So then, speaking of apocalyptic, since we are supposed to be comic based, What so some apocalyptic comics that were around back in the day or even now.
Walking Dead.
Well, there's The Walking Dead. I mean, The Walking Dead, like that took off like gangbusters. But there was X-Men had literally the Age of Apocalypse. So I mean, I think I had one comic from that whole entire series. But I had no idea what it was about.
Age of Apocalypse was different. It was an alternate
it was about
reality.
apocalypse, wasn't it?
It was Apocalypse had taken over, and
Yeah, it was about the dude.
Charles Xavier had died, and Magneto took over the X-Men. So, the teams were broken up, scenarios were different. Wolverine was wild, but that wasn't like an apocalyptic type thing.
They didn't have an apocalyptic scenario.
Well, it was all based off of the fact that Charles Xavier died and Magneto basically created the X-Men.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was a
retelling.
Yeah, and it was Apocalypse was the main central villain of the series. That's why the Age of Apocalypse. But when you were talking about the Earth and the monsters and all that, Tommy, one of the things that popped into my head was Pacific Rim and the
that or the what is it, Monolith or whatever the thing is that on Apple TV right now. That's really good.
Monarch.
It's all the monsters. Monarch. Thank you. Yeah,
that's Godzilla.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought that was fun.
I love Pacific Rim. That is a really, really good example of shaking up the world and putting it on its head without getting rid of all of our gadgets and toys.
Yeah, I mean, do you have to have an apocalyptic scenario where everything is destroyed? What would be? It has to be destroyed. Is that just the part of the story?
To me, an apocalyptic scenario would just be losing electricity. That would.
That's
on the internet. I mean, for good. I'd be able to survive because I was raised on a farm in the 70s, and we were pretty self-sufficient. But most of the people I know wouldn't be able to survive.
No,
nobody knows how to pluck a damn chicken.
Yeah,
but
what is that? What you do with chickens? Oh, that's so sad.
After you chop the head off, by the way.
Yeah. And when you defeather them, you have to have the exact right temperature, and then you can pluck them really easily. So
dip them in boiling water.
Yep.
No. Y'all are gross.
No. I've done it more than a few times. That's stocking my freezer. So
one of the things that I like is that kind of was touched on here is in this apocalyptic thing. Yes, you are correct. We may not have a thing where any of our technology is taken away. But one of the things that we learned with in Pacific Rim is our technology is not necessarily enough. So we have to develop even more to go against these greater challenges. Yeah. So that's another aspect that
accelerate.
I can't even say it. Now I've said it so many times I can't say it at all. But that word could also be it could be like today, but all of a sudden a gazillion aliens came down and just took over, and it's also the same thing, right? We're saying,
that's the whole thing with dark skies with the skitters. That was people were hiding in pockets of little communities, trying to avoid these skitters. I love that show. That was great. Noel Wiley. That was who.
That's him.
Started.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Noah. Yeah.
Well, we are coming to the end of our show. So thank you.
That was quick.
Yeah, I know.
That was really quick for me. Come on, halfway.
I want to mention that
We got to talk about the Kickstarter. Did y'all bring that up? That there's only a couple of weeks left, or a couple of days left.
You mean
not Kickstarter.
this one? Whoops, not that one.
Fund My Comic.
Fund My Comic.
Fund My Comic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, crowdfunder. I meant the crowdfunder. I'm sorry. Yeah, go Fund My Comic. The Bear in Beyond the Stars.
Yep.
Yeah. Bear 2 and Beyond the Stars 3.
Bear.
Yeah, I gave a really long link, but that's the only one. I just copy and pasted. We have got, we are 65% funded. We have 4 days to go. We still need to get around $700 to reach our goal. So if you're out there and you want to jump in, please find Beyond the Stars and Beah, Beah is the way you spell that, on fundmycomic.com.
It's
help us out.
It's Silverline Comics crowdfunder.com. Isn't that the link?
Yeah, something like that. My link was super long. I don't know. I just copied and pasted it from the address bar, and it kind of went out of
one
control.
of the things that Tim was saying yesterday was, when you go to that, he was seeing that it was actually up on the front page. So, Fund My Comic, you may be able to find it there, or just do a search for Beyond the Stars or Silverline. You should be able to get it pretty easily.
Yeah, I believe they gave us a spotlight kind of thing, so it would stay up at the front.
And so anybody that's choosing to visit, I mean, obviously you got the books, you've got the ability to go back and get some of the back issues.
Got some original art. I've got a cover that I did. I inked 1 or 2 of the covers, so you can go buy that stuff. It's
and the
books, besides the books, there's other stuff.
And the foil covers are really nice. I like
foil
that.
Books. Yeah,
that example. That example that was on there. You can see exactly what it looks like. Though
those guys
it'll be.
I don't know who they are, but those guys.
Yeah, and that was a special double-sided cover for that. Obviously.
Yeah, it's not going to be double-sided. That was because they I don't know why they did that, because I don't think they thought ahead of time when they printed it that way, because it just caused all kind of confusion. But it's not a flip book. It's 2 separate books. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it gives you a great idea of what it looks like, and this is the only way that you can get that foil cover. So jump on it, and like Tommy said, there's a lot of original artwork there. If you're into having some original stuff, so that's great as well.
And as we all like to say, even though Martin can't get on, he can actually say it. As we all like to say at the end of our podcast,
Mine Silverline.
Hi, my name is Paul Kupperberg. Make mine Silverline.